All right, we should
That
be going.
was
Go ahead, Frank.
sure. Thank you so very much. Welcome everyone to the May 2nd, 2023 Clean Weekly Telecon. I always say this, we've been doing weekly telecons since 2008. I just find that stunning. But there's a lot to talk about, and yet there's more to talk about. So I'm really excited to be with you all today. I'll be your step-in facilitator for, we have a presenter today. So we usually introduce ourselves in the chat. If you're new to this call, Wells, I'd invite you to, probably have your information, but if you want to put in any information about yourself and where you work, and but same for others, introduce yourselves in the chat. But we usually start with some introduction, some announcements. So are there any announcements that anybody wants to say? And also remember that there are people who lurk in the clean community. They call themselves lurkers, and they listened to these recorded webinars. So that's that you're presenting to a small group, because not everybody can make it at this weird time, 1 o'clock Eastern on Tuesday. I don't know how we chose that time, but do realize that you're presenting to a wider group of people than those who are here today. So anyway, announcements. You can raise your hands. I'm going to use gallery view just so I can see if anybody's in there. Anything in there?
Looks like Don.
Hi there.
Oh, you're there. Hey, Don. Oh, I see. Actually goes Katie first, especially Katie needs to get out of here and take care
Oh, no,
of
Don, go ahead. I have to get the link anyways. Don, go first.
Yeah, so PRI is going to co-host a listening session for the climate literacy standards a week from tomorrow at 5:30. And I will put the link to register in the chat in just a moment.
Hey, Don, is that a public one?
Yeah, absolutely.
And did we make an Eventbrite for it?
I am not sure. I know I've got an email from Haley that came yesterday that I haven't read yet because I've been busy, but I will get back to her today and ask that question. And
let's do that.
Yep.
All right, fantastic. Katie?
I have two. One is kind of related to that. I just wanted people to know we are working on trying to set up a listening session for the Clean Network with Frank and Haley. So hopefully we'll get that set up. We're thinking we're not going to do it at a regular Clean call time though, to try to engage more folks from different time zones. So we'll make an announcement when that is ready, but I just wanted people to know we're working on it. And then the other announcement I have is that we are also putting together a wow, that's a long link. Is that the right one? We're putting together a film screening event. The Climate Mental Health Network folks made a film about, fairly short 10-minute or so film about mental health challenges for Generation Z youth dealing with climate change, and we're going to host film screening of it and a panel including one of the folks in the video, as well as a climate scientist from Ceres CU Boulder and a psychologist from CU Boulder as well. So I'm going to put the link to that in the chat, but it's on May 17th and we'd love for Clean Network to attend.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. I'm just going to take facilitator's prerogative for a second and carry that theme along. We have a youth listening session for climate literacy on Saturday. So if there's anybody who either they work with young people, can promote it, and we want to have as large a representative sample of young people. It's not limited to United States citizens only. But it would be really important to have that promoted for Saturday. So please promote it away. All right. So we're gonna use Zoom. Okay, that's Don. I got you. Cool. Then any other announcements before we get into it?
Yeah, I've got one more. We are also hosting a Marianne Krasny, who is at Cornell, has a new book out on community climate action, and she's going to do a session for us on Tuesday, May 16th, a week from tonight. And I'll put link for that as well in the chat, and a link for our newsletter that has all of this stuff. It'll take me a minute to put those links in, but they're coming.
All right, thank you, Don. Anything else? All right. So, Karen, do you want me to turn it over to you to introduce our presenter today?
That'd be great. Thanks, Frank.
Sure.
I'm really excited about this session because in listening to the January session that Clean had about how do we get enough people trained to electrify the country, I kept saying to myself, we need to hear from Rising Sun because they've been doing this for decades now. And so I contacted Rising Sun and got sent to Wells Brown, who is the perfect person to do this session, to lead off this session. And our idea is to have Wells talk about what Rising Sun Center for Opportunity has been doing from Oakland, California, and spreading throughout California over the last couple of decades, and then have a more national vigorous discussion about how do we generate enough trained people to electrify the country and therefore address our climate change issues. So it's with that background that I'm just delighted to introduce you to Wells Brown, who's the Director of Youth Programs at Rising Sun Center for Opportunity. And he's going to tell you all about their programs, what they do, how they do it. And then we're going to launch from there into a discussion of how do we scale this up and get the whole country able to have this kind of a program or something similar. And as you know from the chat, Wells is the Director of Youth Programs, but he comes from a background that started with a service in the Peace Corps and has been doing that kind of community-based work. With that short introduction, take it away, Wells.
Great, will do. Bear with me a moment. I'm going to try and do some screen sharing before I dive in. Let's see, is this going to be the right one? You all should. I'm going to hit present on this. Are you all able to see
we can, but we also
the notes
perfect.
section or the?
Yeah, we can see your notes as well.
All right, let me fix that. Let me just do this really quickly. Let's try this. Pardon me, sorry about this. There's always a little bit of technical difficulties, right?
That's right. Everything's a little bit different, right?
You'd think after the pandemic, we'd be like wizards at all this and all the technology would work and the internet would be just fine.
Right.
Yeah, but that didn't happen.
No, it did not. Okay. Are folks now seeing
That's perfect
without the notes?
You got it.
Fantastic. Great. So yeah, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me here today to speak with all of you about Rising Sun and the programs that we run out here in California. I'm really looking forward to sharing the fantastic work we do, how we do it, and answer any questions that you might have. But before I dive into that, I would like to say thank you to Karen for reaching out to me about this opportunity and helping to set it up. So thank you to that. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Anyway, my name is Wells Brown, as you will have seen in the chat, and I'm the Director of Youth Programs at Rising Sun Center for Opportunity. And I've been with Rising Sun working exclusively on the Climate Careers program since 2012. Watching it grow, evolve, and shift into the program that it is today. And a bit of background on how I landed here, not just from the Peace Corps, is that I actually also started as a temporary employee within the program, overseeing a given site office on the Berkeley and Emeryville border, working with 8 fantastic youth from the local high schools. And at the end of the summer, when my contract was up, I pestered my then supervisor into bringing me on as a full-time employee because I was just super moved by the work that Rising Sun was accomplishing, and I knew I wanted to be a part of it. One additional facet of that sort of arc that, in my opinion, is truly awesome is that as of last year, I was able to remain in contact with at least one of those original 8 youth I was working with in 2012. And I'm proud to say that he's now on our board of directors, supporting the programs that he benefited from just a short time ago and helping to sort of drive the direction of the programming and where we take it. So yeah, flash forward 11 years, and here I am presenting to all of you about the different facets of Rising Sun's programming throughout the 9 Bay Areas in San Joaquin County. Why is it not shifting? There we go. Great. So yeah, so we first and foremost, and just to set the stage, Rising Sun is a nonprofit workforce development organization with offices in Oakland and Stockton, and serving the greater Bay Area community. And since 1994, Rising Sun has built career pathways for economic equity and climate resilience. You know, that's our mission, and workforce development is how we deliver on this mission. As for why we deliver on our mission, you only need to look at our vision statement, which is to have a just and sustainable future for all people and our planet. And we achieve both of these directives through our job training and employment programs for youth and adults. There we go. So the first job training program that I'm going to touch base on today is Opportunity Build. Since 2009, Opportunity Build has offered a pathway out of poverty for nearly 1,000 people through training and job placement for high road careers within the labor trades. And within the state of California, those quite often can represent, and we put an emphasis on the labor trades that are focusing on clean construction, green construction, and LEED certification when applicable. But you know, in order to achieve this, Opportunity Build takes a whole person, trauma-informed approach to job readiness and combines that with 11 weeks of skill development and hands-on training with a year of case management, job placement, and retention support, along with other wraparound services upon completion and graduation from the program. And each year, adult job seekers, more than half of them women and nearly half within reentry, enroll in our certified apprenticeship readiness program or pre-apprenticeship program to break the significant barriers that they've previously faced in their own lives to employment. And during their time with us, they receive a small stipend during training and graduate with their union-approved multi-craft core curriculum certification, as well as their first aid and OSHA 10 certificates, ready to start a career in the green building trades or in construction and other industries at the forefront of the transition to a clean economy. Opportunity Build proudly includes one of the only all-women MC3 programs in the country, known as Women Building the Bay, which is addressing the gender gap within the trades industry, and we run that at least once per year. In our area alone, there are 28 building trades affiliates, each with their own unique and different guidelines for getting into their apprenticeship program. So Opportunity Build focuses on helping people figure that out while providing them with the foundational skills to succeed within that trade or any other trade. And the end goal is placing participants into high-paying careers that have that the participants have previously been excluded from, and that can provide immediate pathways of upward mobility, family-sustaining wages, and benefits. One thing I'll say about this program is that my time with Rising Sun has had me working exclusively on the Climate Careers program, which I'm about to touch base on, and not on the Opportunity Build program. So that's to say that if you have any questions about this program, I've got 11 years worth of knowledge on it, but I'm not the go-to knowledge base. But I'm happy to answer them, and if I don't know an answer, I can follow up with that director and get you those answers. There may be a few things that I'm not aware of. The next program that we run, which is the program that I am so deeply connected to and care so much about, is Climate Careers, which is an employment social enterprise program for youth, and we've been running it for over 20 years now. Since 2000, Climate Careers has trained and employed local youth to provide residents with free energy efficiency and water conservation services each year, called a greenhouse call. And through this social enterprise model, youth gain real world work experience as energy specialists. They're paid to participate in professional development workshops and coaching that will best set them up for success in the future. They have an ability at their local community level to fight aspects of climate change, and they're able to help impacted residents within their communities save energy and water. And so it's really this like fantastic marrying of upskilling, community intervention, and sort of forward thinking lenses around environmental issues. And a bit, about a little bit more about the program is that Climate Careers youth are ages 15 to 24, and they all come from low income households. Over the years, nearly 2,000 of these youth have served over 50,000 local homes, making them more energy and water efficient in the process, supporting their own futures and that of their planet, which they care so deeply about and are motivated to protect. And for many of them, it's their first green job or just their first job, period. We're working with at times a relatively young age population. And so trying to, instill that first world of work experience, not just in a, whatever it may be, summer job, but within the clean economy, and in an empowering manner is really important. Annually, Rising Sun hires about 75 young people across a 10-county region to join this program and do this work. And we offer wages of $18 to $28 an hour, dependent upon their position, and whether or not this may or may not be a returning year for them. Some youth are able to come back each year in positions of greater responsibility. Some become temporary summer managers who manage and oversee youth in subsequent years, and some have even come back full-time as Rising Sun staff. One example of that is a current regional manager, Gerald Little. He started with our program in 2017 and came back every year, bringing on different aspects of leadership and oversight, as well as, trending through his academic pathway. And he is now a full-time staff member, and we're so psyched to have him with us. From an operational perspective, Climate Careers is expensive and complex, though. We go from a full-time staff of 25 annually within Rising Sun to a staff of well over 100 every summer. And all things held static, program costs are always rising due to the increases of living wage and the expenses of the world. But from an access and equity perspective, we think it's super important to ensure that we are offering youth with a real well-paying job that's investing in them and increasing pathways for them, because studies show that paid positive work experiences or earn and learn opportunities build resilience, and increase the likelihood of future career access for young folks within the industries that they have positive experiences in. So hopefully really priming that pump for the next generation of clean economy employees. And then just a little bit of quick history before I jump into the next slide is that Climate Careers started in Berkeley with the support of the city. A staff member, a Rising Sun staff member, was teaching a class on climate change at Berkeley High, and the students in that class decided that they didn't want to just learn about climate issues. They wanted to impact it, and they wanted to go out and do something to make a difference in their community. So that's really where it all started, from young people showing initiative and that passion and drive still carries through our programs today. So yeah, what is Rising Sun's expertise and what makes it special? Obviously, I'm a bit biased, but to me, there are several things that make Rising Sun special. One is our triple focus mission at the intersection of workforce, climate, and equity. Another is our communities. We prioritize youth from low-income households. We prioritize women. We prioritize people with insufficient income and individuals, experiencing reentry into, out of the carceral system. And with all of that, we take a whole person, strength-based approach to working with our participants. Our programs are designed with direct input from those participants, as well as the larger community, our partners, and really crucially, employers. And finally, we focus on high road careers and pathways that are offering family sustaining wages and benefits. And we have a specific expertise in energy efficiency industry and the building and construction trades, with emerging and growing expertise in the residential decarb industry. And so, after hearing all of this, you might be wondering, well, how does Rising Sun fund the work that we do? And the answer is that it's a mixture of foundational grants, individual giving, and government grants or earned income. This year, our annual operating budget is about $6.2 million to achieve our goals, mission, and objective. And of that $6.2 million, we have multiple large-scale contracts that are plus $1 million, and those are funded through cap and trade dollars, or through the state of California, and through Public Utility Commission dollars passed through investor-owned utilities and or regional energy networks, or RENs as we call them. And when it comes to our foundation grants, most of those are within the $35,000 to $50,000 range. On multiple year terms, focusing on employment, upskilling, barrier removal, and or financial or climate sustainability for individuals or communities we aim to serve. And all of that is really sort of braided together nicely to complement the goals of our programs, the mission of our organization, and the financial viability and security of our organization, so that we can continue to operate and expand our offerings. There's some pretty cool stats that I think are really indicative of our ability to find and identify these dollars that are going to support this work. And as you can see on this slide, annually we submit about 46 funding applications. That's the average over the last 4 operating years, and we have a 67% success rate. And that's because the work that we are putting out into the community, there are a lot of grants and foundations or individual givers who want to seed these types of programs. And then beyond that, it's not just a one-time investment. There is a 91%, again, over the last 4 years, 91% grant renewal rate, because people see the impact and the power that this type of work can have on individuals, and they see the future of what needs to come of it. Wanting to give a holistic snapshot of the organization and leave a lot of time, not just the organization, but the programs we run, and then leave a lot of time for folks to ask some questions. I'll be switching gears and jumping over to this last slide to open it all up for you all. But please do feel free to ask any questions in this chat right now. And in addition to that, and anybody who is listening but not in attendance today, please feel free to reach out to me about our programs, how we operate them, and what it is that we believe makes us unique and scalable. And you can find my email address to do so in this bottom right-hand corner. It's brown@risingsunopp.org. That's my presentation. I'd love to answer any questions. I'm going to figure out how to stop sharing this so you all can see me and I can see you.
Great, thanks, Wells. And I want to just follow up your presentation with a comment and a question. Jim mentioned Jody Pincus, and that's the first person I ever met with Rising Sun. She had the vision to keep this whole thing going and get up the momentum to build to the 6 million a year that you have now. And all those of us who are working or have worked for nonprofits know what that takes to get there. In the January discussion, some people were saying, so why isn't this a role that junior colleges, community colleges should be filling? So I want to kick off the questions by asking you, why Rising Sun, and why shouldn't we be going down this path by having a mandate that says community colleges should be doing this work. And I go there because in the 1970s, when we first had federal legislation that required every community to have a water treatment plant, it was the community colleges that were tasked with the job of training the water treatment plant staff all across the country. And it was a massive effort that led, if quite frankly, to the startup of the North American Association for Environmental Education and grew the whole field of environmental education. And I keep saying to myself, maybe the same thing should happen with this. So tell me, Wells, why or why not?
So a couple things. One, I had the distinct pleasure of working with Jody for 6 years. And so, big shout out to her. Secondly, I saw there was a question to put my email address in the chat, so I did just pop that in there. As for the question of why or why not, I don't actually see it as a why or why not. I see it as an in tandem, and it's incredibly crucial that not only are we educating folks through community colleges on this, but we're also hitting it from a nonprofit standpoint or a community-centered standpoint. And I say nonprofit in that regard because I think nonprofits are really at the forefront of representation of communities and ensuring that they have buy-in as well as representation and are within the actual solutions or the issues that they're addressing. It's crucially important. But to discuss the how nonprofits and or governmental institutions, local government institutions can work with community colleges, I think last Friday was a really fantastic example of how that can happen. Chabot College, which is in Hayward, California, just a little bit away from Oakland, for those who are not quite sure where Hayward is, they held their first annual environmental justice conference, conference and convening, where they were bringing together any organization that they could get to respond, to show up and network with students and network with each other on ways that they can support not only the work that that individual organization is doing, but then uplift the work that other organizations are doing and intentionally bring community college students in to conduct that work. Because it's really, really, really important to ensure that I, as a representative of an organization, are staying connected to what it is that's going on the ground for young people who are facing, in particular, these climate issues. So I don't view it as a either or. I view it as a completely in tandem with each other. The academic institutions are going to be able to do some real hard science and education in a way that Rising Sun may not be structured to do outside of our very specific purview. But when we collaborate with them and we collaborate with other organizations, we are able to tap into the immense knowledge and the immense capacity that comes out of all of these different institutions and the young folks who are trying to get into that field, break into that field, and have an impact for the future that they are being handed. And one of the things that I've always said is that, young people have this very urgent lens that they've been, handed when it comes to the climate issue. They've never had a point in their life where it's like, well, climate change might happen. It's always been climate change is happening and it's happening to you. And it's really important for us to listen to them because they are going to reap, sort of the consequences, positive or negative, of inaction or action. And so ensuring that we have a collaborative, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess coalition of nonprofits, local governments, academic institutions, bringing that coalition together and ensuring that youth have access to it is really important. And it's not just important from a classroom stance, it's important from an implementation stance.
Thank you, Karen. This is an open conversation time. I've got endless questions, but as facilitator, I'm going to hold back because you're in a very important conversation space, Wells. So let's open up the floor to somebody, not me. I will start asking questions if no one does. There you go, Melissa. Thank you.
Hi, this sounds so fascinating. I'm curious, can you give some examples of the kind of tasks that the youth do in these work positions?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, we are training and employing them to go out and provide those greenhouse calls. And so that training it sort of involves them learning how to internalize like the thermal concepts of like a thermal envelope of a household, energy efficiency issues, you know, how a home is using energy or how they're using water. And we're teaching them how to collect those data points in the home. And those data points then turn around and generate an individual and unique client report for the homeowner or renter. But beyond that, they're also installing energy and water efficiency devices during that process. They are, you know, doing some of the lower hanging fruit because they, you know, a 15-year-old in a 2-week training, although we're happy with the training, we're proud of the training they go through, they're not quite primed to start taking on some of those bigger steps like upgrading an electric panel for whole home electrification. But they are being trained on how to identify some of those pieces that can then be turned around and shared with that homeowner, so that the homeowner is empowered to make decisions on how to take those next steps on their energy or water efficiency journey. And the youth are trained to sort of have some of those initial conversations with them and talk to them about income qualified programs or rebate programs that those homeowners or renters can take advantage of. And one thing that I didn't really have a chance to touch base on in too much detail was that this service that we provide, we are paying these youth, we're training and paying these youth to go out into this community, but everything that they're providing to the homeowner or renter that we serve is absolutely no cost to the homeowner or renter. So if youth are installing these energy efficient lighting, you know, fixtures or water fixtures and smart outlets, and talking to them about how to set up schedules with a partner like Ohm Connect or something like that will help them to you know, flex their Ohm hours and reduce their bills even further. All that's no cost to that homeowner or renter. And then the programs that they're able to take advantage of are also tailored to the individual unique homeowner, and that's based off of income and verifications. Now, we don't do that income verification on our side. Our program is 100% free, no cost, and available to all homeowners and renters, regardless of income status. But we do prioritize communities that are hard to reach, are in disadvantaged communities as defined by Cal EnviroScreen 4.0, and or are non-native English speakers or folks who typically don't take advantage of these types of services. And one of the really fantastic things I think that we have as a recruiting mandate, besides ensuring that youth come from low-income households and we can prioritize this upskilling for a population that we feel is sometimes not able to take advantage of these great opportunities, is that when we hire youth out of those communities, we make sure that they're representative of the community that they aim to serve. And what that means is we had an office in 2019 in Oakland where we had 8 young people working in that office, and there were 9 different native languages spoken within that office. So we were able to service the entirety of the city of Oakland through multicultural lenses that I'm as an English speaking non-Spanish or non-Hindi or Tagalog or one of the other languages that Oakland represents, am not able to do, but our youth are, and they all of a sudden see that these languages that are within their household and they speak on a daily basis are a true asset in an ever evolving and diversifying region and country.
Jim, you have a hand up.
Great, thanks, Frank. Hi, Wells. So yeah, long-term fan of you all. One is kind of a general question of what you're providing and what students are doing or what young people are doing is very real and serious money and, you know, good careers and so on. Hoping the answers are strong on this. How are things going? On also being taken seriously, you know, and supportive. I think it's very good. You've done the great groundwork of saying the union apprenticeships or the good paying apprenticeships where they can have the chance to go on, or say with you know, Cal Berkeley and so on, to careers in engineering. I think it's been positive, but checking on that in Local 595. I'm going to give up on that question for now, and later just want to check in a bit about it's opportunities of growth we've seen in both ways of wanting to share opportunities with you to be known in some other categories that we can help on. Okay. So anyway, how are things on further career advancement off of this?
Yeah, so for our adult program, it's really, that I can talk to that, and then I'll talk about the youth program. For our adult program, it's about an 80% placement rate into, family sustaining wage positions within the labor trades. So that's fantastic. With our youth program, it is a little bit harder to quantify where some of these youth go and what type of sort of success rate we have in their job placement. 15-year-old, we're not looking to place them into a full-time career at this point. We're looking to spark either a career pathway interest or an academic interest. And it is tough to track an alumnus over 4, 5, 6 years to the point where they're in career readiness age. And so that is a bit tough for us to follow. One thing that I think is really fantastic, though, is a little bit about how our program is evolving beyond just the summer engagement for youth and into what we are calling an externship program, where annually all of the youth that we hire in a given year, we transition about 80% of them at the end of the summer into an additional pathway that we call externship. Think of it just as a normal internship, except it's not with our organization. They stay on our payroll. They stay in our HR and administrative and management overview. They all, for all intents and purposes, remain as a Rising Sun employee, but they're getting an additional 140 hours minimum of paid work experience with an organization working within the clean economy. And all of that is to give them an understanding of what the world of a clean economy can look like outside of just a residential energy efficiency assessment and installation of services. And so from there, we're able to engage with them a little bit further and hopefully spark that interest even more deeply as they can see it and as they can see their abilities to have impact in multiple different ways. And through that process, we are starting to actually have, sort of glimmers of actual job placement for some of our 21 and 22-year-olds. A really strong example of that is last year we partnered with an organization called Redwood Energy. And right now we are having conversations with one of the folks about how we can get an additional set of youth to them this year, because they were so happy with who they had last year that they continue to employ them, and they'd love to grow their workforce that way. So as we transition into some of that and out of that full-time just summer earn and learn program model, we're going to start to be able to track that a little bit better and start seeing those metrics. But then, anecdotally, we hear from alumni who, tell us that our program helped to give them the foundational, sort of interest in getting into a position with Clear Result as a home energy advisor, or with their experience interning with Bay Rent sparked an interest to have them start, focusing on larger scale community efforts at the governmental level. So we're hearing more and more about it anecdotally, but it's not as easy to track as our adult program, which is exclusively about job placement.
So, Wells, so I work at the federal level, and I coordinate now 24 federal agencies on climate engagement and capacity building with a focus on workforce. And we're trying to figure out what's important to do in this space. And we know the federal government is investing a significant amount of effort in climate jobs. And between our bipartisan infrastructure law and our IRA funds, massive, right? But it's kind of ad hoc, and it's not very well described. And so your answer to Melissa's question kind of triggered something for me. And because I think, with young people, in the career and technical space, pathways are really important. But then there's these things called clusters, which is a group of pathways. But I think in the climate work, we haven't really described the full portfolio of climate jobs very well. That's my assessment. If you look at the career tech, which is advanced CTE, right? They have career clusters, but it's interesting, like nothing we're talking about is showing up in there as a cluster. And so I'm meeting with Advanced CTE tomorrow to see if they're open to the idea of creating and articulating a climate cluster, which would have multiple pathways in it, which I would hope. So my question to you is, if we were able to describe the pathways that relate to climate as a part of, a cluster, would that help you kind of let your young people that you're working on see the range of things that are sitting in front of them? Not just I'm in energy efficiency and that's what I stay in, right? There's a whole lot. It's a massive field. But it's too massive and it's too undescribed so to be valuable. But we need the young people to jump into this space. So would better mapping of that space be helpful to you and what you're doing?
It would absolutely be helpful. And I think it's also important to state that the clean economy can really have any level of employment status as we think about it now. And we need to start helping folks understand that if their passions lie in something like communications or marketing, that is also and can be a clean economy job, because Redwood Energy, SEI, Takachar Limited, Grid Alternatives, all of these organizations that are doing this foundational work to help green the grid or create energy independence or microgrid expansion, like whatever it is that an organization may be focusing on, that type of work is super important. And so it doesn't need to be this direct linkage between what it is they're doing. If it's like turning a wrench to install a solar panel, you don't have to do that if that's not what you want to do to be a part of the clean economy. And I think we need to stop putting the clean economy in this box of like different types of jobs and start recognizing that in order for us to have the impacts that we need to within the public or the private sector and start creating this workforce, people need to be able to identify their passions that exist within that industry that may not actually look like a solar installer or a wind turbine.
Right.
The clean economy is the economy of the future, and it just has to go that way, and that includes all jobs. Even an Uber driver, if they have a Tesla or a Prius, is greening the transportation system. It's tough. It's a harder thing to make a connection to. And there's lots to say about whether or not there's more cars on the road because of Uber, but we need to start understanding like all of these different linkages, and the fact that work of the future, no matter what it is, just has to be green.
So it's funny you say that, because one of the things we agreed to in the conversation with the White House was that the down the road, all those career clusters would be climate jobs. But in the near term, probably articulating it better as a starting point, but broadening it totally. Everything you just said totally resonates with what we've been thinking about. So that's super awesome and helpful. I'll just give one quick thing. There are some gaps where we're finding workforces, the industries are having a hard time finding a key position that they're good on a lot of things, but there's one. I'll give you an example, which is coming to the California, offshore wind. The key position that they're really struggling with is not the one you're thinking about. It's ship captain. They cannot find the people to drive ships that is critical to offshore wind. They can't find ship captains anymore. No one wants to be a ship captain. Like, well, what do you do about that? Pays really well, but you got to be able to see a lot. So anyway, I'm just, there's like these gaps that we need to identify and go, oh, now we got to focus. But until we have a better articulation, we can't focus. So thank you, Wells. I see Mark.
And it seems to me, Frank, that your career cluster map is going to be evolving. I mean, every 6 months or every year, it's going to have to be revised. I need another project like the hole in the head, but right.
But
yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. I do want to get to Mark before we run out of time. Mark, you have your hands up.
Yeah, thanks so much. And thanks, Wells. So I have two questions or thoughts. One, well, actually, I think they're thoughts that I wanted to offer in reaction. First of all, there's a group of us that here in California that's just starting some work, trying to get really formalized. Thanks, Amy is part of 10 Strands, and 10 Strands is a big collaborator with the California Environmental Literacy Initiative on some of these innovation hubs, and a really new hub that we're launching soon is going to look at how can we prepare all the partners in this upcoming Golden State Pathways effort. So as it's a $500 million effort to expand career pathways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the very first time in California where the word climate has appeared explicitly. And this stuff is really collaborative work, to your point, Wells. And so I'm hoping, Wells, I'd love to talk to you offline about, and any other Californians in the room here and on the recording too, definitely reach out, because we welcome lots of partners in this work. And then to the point of, my frustration, I'm in the CTE world here in California, and California just released a new CTE plan, like a 5-year vision plan, and it doesn't mention California anywhere. I mean, it doesn't mention climate anywhere substantively. It's so frustrating. A group of us actually showed up at the last few meetings, where they were showing off drafts, and they said, this is a chance for public input. And we said, where the heck? We have all this climate ambition as a state. Where is it? Mm-hmm. And anyway, it never appeared. And it was so happy about Golden State Pathways, agreed that it needs to show up in CTE plans, but it is tricky because there is this notion that every job is a climate job, or should be, minus the extraction ones. And I have a lot more thoughts about this, and I think there are some ways in which we can develop some clarity, and I don't want to hog time now, but I think there are great ways to develop clarity about this. And some of it actually comes back to that work you're doing in the listening sessions, Frank, about what is climate literacy that every student should have, and how that seems to be, in the listening session I was in, seems to be evolving in a really beautiful way. Certainly I agree with it, that literacy isn't just knowing about science or knowing about climate change, it's learning how to participate in collective action. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a big piece of it. I have a lot more to say, but I'll stop for now. Thank you, Well, so much. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think claps to all of that, flowers given, snaps, whatever it is that you use to double click and share that. And the only thing that I would add to that, which may already be in there, is that all of this work needs to be valued and it needs to be attractive. And what that really is sustaining wages, upward pathways of mobility, clear promotional opportunities, as well as investing in growth once you enter into that sector, and ensuring that you're going to stay, relevant, and not immediately be replaced by the next generation of new tech folks. And so it's ensuring a just transition in that process, as well as a just sort of like holistic holding within that process. And I don't know the boat captain license example, but my guess is most people don't know that is a great career to have, and as such they aren't going for it because it's somehow been devalued and pushed to the margins. And I'm not against anybody becoming a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that, but we need to find ways to have people envision themselves outside of these day-to-day stereotypical roles and start realizing that the world of work is vast, and whatever it is that you want to do is actually, you can be paid for it. And if you are interested in being paid for something, hopefully it's green.
So Jim, one just important point to add to what Wells just said. What we're finding out of Delaware is actually the top reason why somebody chooses one of these career types isn't actually pay. It's actually purpose, it's relevance, it's meaning, it's making a difference. And then, but you're not going to sacrifice yourself like I did to become a teacher. But the lead is not money. It's in the second, third order of things, but but these are great jobs.
Yeah.
But they have a real high purpose that we haven't tapped into yet. Absolutely agree. Jim, looks like you might be our last person of the day. So
I promise to be quick. This could come from a student who's about to go into Stanford. This can come from another of our students who's going into the building trades. So students to students or young to young. Since we got to know each other 20 years ago, our students have developed a way that you can go into any house, any building, and immediately find out where energy is being wasted with an innovative camera. We'd love to share that with you. So could you imagine going into any building, you go down the block and find out anywhere there's an incandescent light on and say that light needs to be changed. Love to share that with you. Okay.
That's awesome. That'd be very cool to see that.
And it's fun to use.
I bet it is.
So Karen, your question here about how to go beyond California. Really great question.
My perception from the screen is that virtually everybody except Dawn here is from California. Is that true?
No, Melissa's not from California. Colleen's not from California.
Okay.
Carrie, I don't know where you are. Don is not. I'm not. But I'll tell you, like, buried in Washington State is some of the most ambitious climate and technical education in the nation. They're doing amazing stuff, but they're not. It's hidden, and I'm trying to stick my pry bar in there as hard as I can about. But
and is equity being attended to in these other places also?
Often, but I will tell you, Karen, is the solution we have is bright spots, right? Is we don't have a good landscape understanding of how career and technical climate solutions, we don't have a very good understanding of that landscape. We have to landscape it, understand it, identify it, and then be really precise in our coding so that we can see what's transferable across the country, right? This is starting to pop all over the place, but nobody's really looking at it and studying it and looking at the work that, right, Wells, your group is doing against what SEI is doing with Climate Corps, against what Grid Alternative is doing, against what the career and technicals in the high schools or the community colleges, which specific, pathways are being created and which one, it is completely, as far as I can tell, undescribed as a field. And, we don't really know where the gaps are. We don't know where the opportunities are. And we are trying to get there, but no funder has stepped up and said, let's get that done. It's open. I am trying to get Department of Energy to do it, but it's slow going. That's where I think we're because mitigation's ahead of resilience by a lot, and that's okay. We'll get there. Sorry, that looks like I may have chosen any other Wells.
Amy,
was this
Amy,
helpful?
did you get your question answered?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Amy, did I miss your question?
I thought you had your hand up a while ago. Okay.
No.
Sorry.
All right. Amy, do you don't have a question? I'm just playing with you. I'm playing. A little punchy today. Hey, Wells, was it a useful conversation for you? Karen, you initiated this. Did the conversation you think needed to happen?
Yeah, and I just hope it can continue and get into the work that you're doing now, Frank, at the national level, so that this whole arena is surfaced.
Agreed. Wells, would you participate in a surfacing of the great work to let it transfer beyond California? Is that interesting to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought so. But the same is true for you, Mark, right? The struggles that are in one state are you can leverage. I will say, when New Jersey made those climate standards, New York was like, wait, New Jersey's ahead of us? There's this weird interstate dynamic that you could start, like, Washington State's ahead of us. Oh, we got to get there. It's weird. It's human. It works. But it's kind of.
Mark, are you in New Jersey?
It's kind of funny. The majority of my time still in California, but it's getting close to a quarter of my time in the Philadelphia area, both sides of the river.
Oh, Mark, you're in Philly?
Yeah, part of the year. Yes.
Okay. Oh, we got to talk then.
Yeah,
I'm
I
from
love
Philly.
it. Oh, nice.
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
that.
Okay.
All right. Cool. All right. Well, let's call
Great.
it there. I've got a 2:00 Eastern time at my meeting, but Wells, thank you for the time. Karen, thanks for bringing Wells.
Thanks to all of you.
Yeah.
to the
Thank you
community.
so much, everybody. Have a great one. And please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wells.